Thinking about moving to Boise, looking for some honest info? Then you've come to the right place. Andy and I first moved to Boise right out of college 15 years ago. We've seen the city go from being a hidden gem to becoming one of the fastest growing cities in the nation. In that time, we've definitely learned a thing or two about the true pros and cons of living here. Let's break down everything you need to know about moving here based on our firsthand experience. First, let's cover the pros. First up, access to outdoor recreation. The natural beauty of our city is one of the biggest perks of living here. It just helps make every single day a little bit more enjoyable. We love being within a quick 1-hour drive to great outdoor recreation. From adrenaline, junky sports like mountain biking, whitewater rafting, and skiing, to more relaxed pursuits like soaking in the hot springs, hiking, or canoeing, you'll find it all while living in the Boise area. There's nothing better than spending a warm summer day swimming in the Snake River or camping out in the valley. With such quick and easy access to great outdoors, it's no wonder that so many nature lovers are moving to Boise. Next up, the high quality of life. Something you'll quickly learn after moving to Boise is that people here generally want to live a peaceful existence without intrusion. There seems to be a beautiful sense of community with an unspoken agreement. Do right by me and I'll do right by you. Locals here are keen to protect this little Eden, and everyone, for the most part, pitches in to keep our community safe. As such, Boise's crime rates are all well below the national average. And that's even after the incredible growth we've seen after the past couple of years. Here comes Jackson. It's a truly great and safe place to live and raise a family. Next up, the relatively low cost of living. Inevitably, longtime locals are going to be side-eyeing me on this one. While the cost of living has increased with Boise's tremendous growth and also just the widespread inflation that's happening all across the country, this place is still pretty darn affordable. Granted, the cost of living in Boise is now 5 to 6% higher than the national average. And there's really one culprit to blame for that, the housing market. With so many people moving here and not so many leaving, inventory has been down, meaning the number of homes listed on the market is low. And demand, meaning all the people who want to buy homes and move here, has soared. The solution for many when they are just exploring the Boise area is to find a spot to rent outside of the downtown core. You'll need to take a trade-off between affordable housing and commute times. If helpful, we currently have a client who is hoping to buy this spring, who is paying $1,300 for a one-bedroom apartment in Southeast Boise. For reference, he was paying $2,800 for a one-bedroom, and I think it was like half the size, near Seattle just 1 year ago. Also, in regard to free activities and recreation options, if you compare Boise to other similarly sized metros, Boise is in a class of its own. With the Greenbelt, our 26-mile tree-lined trail that follows along the banks of the Boise River throughout Boise, and the miles and miles of hiking, biking, and jogging trails in the foothills, there's just so much to embrace here that's for free, thus tremendously helping when it comes to your bottom line and your overall cost of living. Next up, strong job economy. Moving to Boise for a new job, you're in good hands. Boise is considered to be one of the best cities in the nation for job seekers, and that's because of our booming job economy. In fact, Boise was recognized as being one of the best, fastest recovering cities after the pandemic. It was also noted as being #1 for fastest job growth. The city's top employers span the gamut from healthcare, tech, and government to hospitality gigs. The current unemployment rate is consistently well below the national average, and that just always seems to be the case in the wonderful state of Idaho. Next up, living in Boise means you get to enjoy all 4 seasons. If you're used to living in cities with mundane climates, you'll likely find living in Boise to be kind of just a breath of fresh air. The city is no stranger to hot summers, cold winters, gorgeous falls, and chipper blooming springs. Boise does them all in glory. That said, and here comes one definite con from my standpoint, inversions. In the winter, we sometimes see atmospheric inversions that often catch newcomers by surprise. Inversions occur when the air mass gets flipped upside down and temperatures in higher elevations remain warmer than they should. It basically feels like a blanket of dense fog and coldness that just sort of encases the valley. Typically, we see them in mid-January. So if you are watching this in mid-January, I am either hunkered in putting together yet another puzzle, kind of my thing, drinking a peppermint latte and dreaming of daffodils, or, and hopefully this is the case, we are up at Bogus skiing, which is a total lifesaver as the elevation climb pops you right up and above the inversion cloud, and you're just sort of like in a whole nother little nook. It's just a breath of fresh air for sure when it comes to inversions. On the plus side, I should note that they don't happen every year. And when they do, they typically only last a week or two. And heck, once inversion season is over and spring really kicks in, because in Boise, when spring kicks in, it really kicks in. It's kind of magic. There's just something about being out and just out of the heels of the inversion, you almost appreciate spring even more. Sort of like that appreciation wave that comes over you after you've been sick for a bit. And then once you feel better, it just feels so good and you appreciate it so much. It's kind of like that. Next, there's a great downtown area. Another just fantastic thing about living in Boise is its vibrant downtown scene. It's not massive, so it doesn't feel overwhelming. You'll often run into people you know, even though it's a city. There's just a ton of charming small stores, cafes, breweries, restaurants. I think my favorite aspect, though, is just the friendly attitude of business owners. It helps make this former small town girl feel like I'm living in a big small town opposed to a city, which I like. This in turn makes living in Boise feel really like a community. People are kind and greet you everywhere you go, and if you frequent certain businesses, you'll be on a first-time basis with the staff in no time. We have so many friends and clients who've moved here from California. One thing that many of them share is that how at first the friendliness of people across the board here, so in restaurants, stores, just passing them in the street, it actually sort of took them back at first and made them feel almost uncomfortable. Once they realized, though, that it was just the way of the land and genuine, they were hooked. So we'll take it. Okay, so now what you're really wondering about, the cons. First up, as briefly touched upon before, the home price to wages ratio is currently pretty whacked. If you're considering moving to Boise to start a new life, you'll need to do some serious research. The reason? The wage to housing ratio is currently a tough one for many. The average salary here is right around $59,000, but the median price of the average home is closer to $500,000. A tough discrepancy for many, especially first-time home buyers. If you are moving from a state such as California and have a home to sell before you leave, the housing prices here might not be a huge hurdle for you. On the flip side, if you're moving from the Midwest and or are a first-time home buyer, it can be a little bit trickier. So yes, here I am as a realtor telling you housing prices are nuts. That seems a bit odd, I'm sure, but well, it's currently kind of the truth. There's no point in sugarcoating it. The good news is there are always solutions. You just need to find an agent you like and trust that will sit down with you and help you build out an actionable and solid game plan. Moving on, and this one will undoubtedly ruffle some feathers. The state of Idaho's public schools just don't rank very well. Idaho is one of 12 states that doesn't offer state-funded preschool programs to children under 5. Secondly, the state's high school graduation rate clocks in at 80%, which is well below the national average of 86%. That said, the city of Boise, as well as its surrounding cities such as Meridian and Eagle, have so many great options. Parents just have to be ready and dialed to explore them. For what it's worth, both of my boys are currently attending a public school within the West Ada School District, and we love it. That said, we definitely know people whose children are still in West Ada School District, but they're attending different schools that aren't happy. On the plus side, there are so many options other than traditional public school to consider. There are public charter schools, public magnet schools, private schools, online academies, homeschooling, learning pods. The list just really goes on. So I guess my advice would just to be prepared that you're gonna have to do some research to find your fit. The next problem with living in Boise, poor city planning for growth. Now, growth has completely exploded over the past 5 or 6 years, and no one can expect the city to be able to magically fix the various issues that growth like that can bring about. But it's unfortunate that there wasn't more forethought and preparation. Back in 2006, when Andy and I hadn't yet moved here, but we were eyeballing the Boise area, we knew at that time that it was up and coming and that it was going to experience a boom. Its upcoming projected growth was already being so widely talked about. So it's very unfortunate that more preparation wasn't put into place earlier. Because of the poor city planning, you'll see a hodgepodge of neighborhoods that don't necessarily jive. Apartments, duplexes, info lots, all tucked into the same areas with residential homes. But I mean, don't get me wrong, it's fun having a mix in the community for sure. But what gets frustrating, I think, for most is one, the roads, and two, the lack of public resources such as schools that should have been built alongside of them. Another hard part of this is out where they are building such a huge amount of newly constructed homes, but yet aren't building out the infrastructure needed to support that growth. There should be more schools, public resources, roadways, stores, all going in to support those booming areas. There are just hundreds of houses on these country roads that just quite simply can't catch up. So traffic is really increasingly becoming a bigger and bigger problem. So yeah, living in Boise right now means lots of construction and many backed up farm roads. Another con of sorts, while I absolutely love the Boise airport because it's just sort of sentimental to me, as it was the airport that Andy and my mom used to take me to fly out to attend boarding school all through high school, but I digress. The Boise airport does have limited direct flights. Thus, this makes air travel more expensive, and it just takes longer to get places because there aren't as many direct flights to many top destination cities. That said, I do appreciate that the airport remains surprisingly uncrowded considering our massive growth, and it's very conveniently located and pretty easy to get in and out of. Next up, low wages and increasing income disparity. Throughout the pandemic, and still happening right now, we have a lot of people moving here and keeping their from-home jobs from other states. So those people can often afford living here quite easily, but many born and raised Idahoans are stuck at the lower end of the wage pool, which makes the increase in what was before a relatively very low price of living flat out hard. As of today, Idaho's minimum hourly wage is still $7.25. That puts the minimum weekly wage for a 40-hour week at just $290. Who can live off that? Meanwhile, housing prices, which are more often than not, a person's highest incurred costs, have completely skyrocketed. The low wage disparity here is becoming increasingly apparent and is just definitely a problem. As with all places, there are always pros and cons to consider. If you'd like to chat about whether Boise would be a good fit for you, let's connect. Call or text us at 208-598-3040. And to help us stay in touch, please like and subscribe. Have a fantastic day.